welcome to another episode of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I have with me a bucket list guest today. If you gave me like 5 people I would love to have on the show, this fine gentleman would be one of them. From the crazy world of Arthur Brown, Arthur Brown. Arthur, how are you?
Oh, I'm coming out at the end of COVID, and it's at the point where I'm feeling great.
I'm glad to hear that. You sound fantastic.
Well, I'm happy, so that makes a difference, doesn't it? I mean, if you got COVID and you feel unhappy, oh, dreadful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You have been a part of my life since I can remember. As a child, we had your first album, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, in our cabinet. I was absolutely fascinated by the cover. I reviewed it earlier this year, but for those folks who don't remember or don't recall, there it is right there. I used to just sit there and stare at this cover, and I would imagine, sometimes I would imagine like you putting all this on to take the picture, and sometimes I would just try and think about how you came up with the concept. How did you come up with the concept? It's really interesting.
Well, of course, I was doing my stage act then did have makeup in it, and I was playing down at the UFO Club, which was the underground club, 2 nights a week, and the rest of the week it was Irish music, the Blarney Club, and so that was floating in the air as far as anybody doing a cover for a Crazy World album. They could have chosen the Flames because I was already using those,
right?
But it was the team of people that Lambert and Stanford Track Records got together. And Kit Lambert's father was a composer, so Kit was in the whole flow of classical music, which led to what was on the album, partly. And Vincent was he could conduct orchestras, and he could write music, and he had studied at the Trinity School of Music in London. So he could do that, but beyond playing, extremely good modern jazz and boogie and anything else in that sphere. So they wanted something wild and psychedelic, even though Kit Lambert, unbelievably, the manager of The Who and The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, said to me, Arthur, we'll do this on the album, this fire stuff, but I would jolly well not doing 2 sides of it. Whoever would want to listen to 2 sides about fire? Good God! And so he said, and as for the continuity of this, we will do the album because there is an interest in these things now. But this psychedelic hippie stuff, it's a flash in the pan, it'll be gone. And he said, it won't be long before we'll have you shaving, so we can put you on the lounge circuit, singing like the bell.
Oh no!
And I thought, what? I said, Kit, you just don't understand. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is what I'm doing. I am doing this. I'm not going to be a lounge singer, thank you.
Yeah.
And I said, on top of that, how would I manage without? I've got a beard, and it was sideburns and he said, no, easily. We just shave it off, and then you put. For the 2 days of UFO, you put on false sideburns and a moustache, and he was firmly convinced that it was all a flash in the pan. But he did want to do the album, and so he gathered from all the people around. They were connected with all sorts of artists of a current style and of a very high quality.
Mhm.
And they looked them out. They came and visited the track office, which itself was a kind of zoo of a certain kind, with every kind of person you can think of in there, from police chiefs to bishops to street people to
Wow.
criminals, and you know, and so he had his pulse on, and to a certain extent also Christian. Uh, the trends, the artists who were giving genuine art rather than just being part of a scene. Um, and so they got David Montgomery and I'm dreadful. I can't remember the guy who did the front cover, which is it's my face and the painted. I'm wearing sunglasses so you can get the UV on there.
Right. Yeah. It's beautifully done. I mean, it really evokes just such a feeling of I've got to hear this album. I've got to hear what's behind this image, which is the whole point of an album cover, right? It's to grab the attention
Yes.
and draw the interest. What I love most about this album, besides the title "Spontaneous Apple Creation," by the way, is one of the greatest titles I've ever heard. What I love about this album is it's kind of it's like a soundtrack for a movie that doesn't exist. It's passages of music. It's got some structured songs, but there's also a lot of almost like free form just performance on it, which I really love. It's what I love about bands like Zappa or King Crimson. But Zappa would do 15 minutes of music that makes no sense. Just a tuba just comes in for no reason, you know. But I've always loved the flow of it, that it wasn't restricted to here's a song that is intro, verse, chorus, bridge, solo. You know, there's a lot of just openness to it.
Yeah, that was from various reasons, I suppose. One was that I was thinking dramatically, if you like, and I had spent many years, even by then, well, many would be by then probably 5 or 6, doing a form of meditation that my father had got someone to come and introduce me to, because he could tell the fall back from the Second World War, where the Luftwaffe seemed to have a personal thing against us, because my grandmother's hotel where we were at the time was blown into dust, absolutely dust. No walls, nothing left. They hit it dead on it, and then we moved for some reason. I think it was to do with my father's. He was at the time, the beginning of the war, a metropolitan policeman, PC 602, destined to stop the white slave trade, he said. And then they blew that. We were housed in a small house. That one was dust, and that was on Whipps Cross Road in the East End of London. And so there was all kinds of fallback, with my father being then in Bomber Command and being psychic, and he could feel the people being bombed. And we lived in, actually then, quite close to where Claire and I have ended up here, which is near Whitby on the coast of England. And that got the hits on the bombs because England was trying to complete its radar defenses.
Mm-hmm.
And so German planes would come over, and if they failed to reach London, on the way out, would drop bombs on the coast, hoping to put out some of the radar
Oh,
developments.
right. Yeah.
And it was a tactical thing where Churchill then said, "Okay, I'll bomb one of the cultural centers in Germany, in uh, Berlin, was it Hamburg? I can't remember." And and he said, and you watch, he'll come for London, and we can complete the stuff. So that was going on. The streets on fire in London, the Blitz and everything, and they would, if they missed or still hadn't managed to unload, they'd been driven away by fighters, they would nevertheless come for the coast. And
Right.
that was why, so that was around here. Yeah, so we're back to the cover. Yeah, I think it was a mood of, okay, this is psychedelia, and psychedelia has a real face to it. It also has a craziness, a fun, a daring to it, and a kind of if you see that image, it's not a normal album image of that kind.
Yeah.
So that was one of the early psychedelic
Right.
covers, in the true sense.
Yeah. And I think we had ours in alphabetical order for a while because that never lasts too long. And I think behind it was Cream's Strange Brew. So you look at, your vibrant album cover, and then you look at the really big pink album for the beautiful record cabinet. I want to ask you too about so tomorrow, not as we're recording this, but as people are viewing this tomorrow, I'll be doing my review of your album Dance that was reissued. Cherry Red Records sent it over to me. Wonderful people over there. Arthur, I
Yeah.
love this album. I mean, spoiler alert for those who are going to listen tomorrow. I love this album. It's got such I don't know if presence is the right word, but it's like nothing I've heard before. Your voice with these styles of music is not something I would have put together on my own. I wouldn't have said, hearing your voice, I wouldn't have said, oh, you should do this. Would have never occurred to me.
Yes.
But it's beautiful. And your voice with the backing singers, very soulful. I just love the sound and the feel of the whole album. It's really amazing.
Well, it's funny actually, because the album originally was going to be dance styles from around the world, and of course that in '74 didn't exist as a whole market. You know what I mean? Everything was still separate, um, and it's not an easy thing that you're going to put together.
Right.
And I was signed to a small record company, Gull Records, who did have a hit with "Going to Barbados." I think the album, the single was. Uh, but what had happened was that I managed to go to a live concert in London, Stevie Wonder's, and I went, and I thought, I don't have a manager at this time, and he's got bouncers, he's got tour managers. You can't reach him. And I thought, well, nevertheless, I'm going to go. And I went and I talked to the guy outside who said, no, you can't go. You can't see him. He doesn't want to see you. I said, you haven't even asked him. He said, yeah, well, I know. He doesn't want to see people. So I said, well, listen, I'm a hit artist who he will know. You go and tell his tour manager. So he goes and he comes back and he says, wait here a minute. So the tour manager came and he said, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to talk to Stevie. I've got a business project that he may be interested in. And so he said, right, I'll go and see his manager. Out came the manager, and he said, well, this is something I can't totally, my inclination is to say, no, I'll go and talk to Stevie about it. So he came back, and he says, Stevie says, come in 10 minutes, he'll give you 8 minutes, because that leaves him about another 10 minutes before he's actually on.
Oh, this is before the show?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm in his dressing room. I've never met him before. And he said, we're just sort of chatting and about his music and Fire and everything. I told him how much I loved what he did, and so he said, come over here. And he's giving me your hand. So I took hold of his hand. He said, give me your other hand. And he put it on his arm here. And then he just went quiet.
Getting a sense of you?
I think so, yeah. Just with, you can't hide much when you're not talking, not
true.
looking in the eye. You just, and after 3 or 4 minutes like that, he said, yeah, let's do it.
Oh. Yeah, I think I would probably be thinking, hey, I've only got 8 minutes. Can we talk about something?
Yeah.
Feeling my hand.
And we had talked, just briefly before that about the fact that it was a world dance styles from around the world, because at that time the whole dancing thing had disappeared, really, in terms of, you go to, you used to go to a gig and you dance, and through perhaps some of the heavy metal early, it was not as such dance. You could move like that, but it wasn't like the previous stuff, which had a jazzy lift to it.
Yeah.
And in the crazy world, I danced all the time. And so it was an unusual idea. And he just felt, oh, yeah, I can see it, So that's what was going to happen. And I managed also to get to see Stevie Winwood, and he agreed to do the keyboards. So I thought Stevie Wonder and Stevie Winwood and whoever else we get. And but in the end, Gull, it was an expensive. Stevie had, his manager was, hey, and also Stevie Winwood's manager.
Yeah.
Stevie was happy to do it. His manager said, okay, you say Steve's already agreed, I don't agree. And he says, okay, if he's insisting, it's triple session fee level. And so my record comes and said, Stevie Winwood and Steve, man, we just, sorry, I think we can't do it.
Yeah, that's your whole budget right there. Just those two
Yeah,
guys. You don't even have a drummer yet. Yeah.
and
Well,
and so
but
I think
that
it was.
but that's like what we
Sorry.
were talking about before we started recording, was that difference between the artistic side and the business side. And there is a
Yeah,
lot of that greed, but you also, the challenge too is people are on tour. You guys are touring around the world. You're trying to get people together to record. Timing is an issue. The budget is an issue. I mean,
yeah.
there's so much to it.
And I was not, I was not a manager. I managed myself,
Mhm.
but I wasn't a manager, and so was a lot I just didn't understand about it, and it didn't even occur to me. I thought, well, if they know that Stevie Wonder is going to produce it, they'll jump on it. They'll
Right.
find the money. But
Mhm.
you can't put your whole record company in danger for
Right.
this. So,
But
but
the expectation would be, if Stevie Wonder's producing it and if he's playing on it, you've got Steve Winwood on it, it's going to sell because their fan bases are going to want to buy the album, right? That's what you kind of go in
absolutely,
hoping,
absolutely.
but it doesn't
But
always work.
no, and it depends what their finances are like at the time, what's happening to everything.
Mhm.
And in the end, that album, I went after we'd done it with, um, the the lineup that we ended up with in the studio, which was a great lineup.
Mhm.
Um, but it was a different beast. I tried to get, for instance, some Chinese music
Mhm.
involved, but when they sent their stuff, it sounded like Danger Man. And I thought, well, that's not what. And I didn't have enough connections in that area,
Right.
um, to be able to get the thing together. And so Roger Bain, who'd just done, I think, Judas Priest's album
Mhm.
and various others, drew on a different sound idea, and but it had, nevertheless, the feelings that I'd had, and I did manage to get, by going to a concert, get to say, okay, I'm on tour here with this band, and it was called Flesh and Bones, for the tour of Europe, I presume. And and he said, well, what we can do, I'll be quite happy if the band want to play on your album. And so I stayed to the end of the concert, and had a word with his tour manager and management, and there it was. So that one did happen, and they did play on the album, on Soul Garden,
Yeah.
and
Oh, good. It's a beautiful sounding album too. Just the recording quality, the mix that I heard from the new release is fantastic. But I love that, this period of music was really weird, because it was either things were drowning in reverb or they were incredibly dry. it
yeah,
was it was like you either got this or that. There was not a lot of in between.
yeah,
And this album, there's songs where there's almost no reverb on your voice, but it sounds rich and full and gorgeous. The bass playing on this album is absolutely incredible. You know,
yes, yes.
and what's
Uh,
the song? Helen with the Sun is probably my favorite, and it's 7.5 minutes long, but it feels like it's a minute and a half. It's just over before you know it. It's a beautiful journey, this album, and every song is really unique. It's like the album itself is very eclectic. It's not like it's a rock album or it's a jazz album. Every song is very individual, but they work so well together. I don't think you could have planned this and made that happen as well as it did.
no, no. Uh, it the the thing was that I was at the time, beginning to feel like, okay, I can write songs on the guitar. I'm not a guitarist, but I can do some chords and things. So a lot of it came out of that, um, and the dance influences that I had crept into how I played it, and it was only a rough idea for people to listen to, and then make the music. So it involved everything from Middle Eastern, Tibetan, Indian,
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And reggae too, which hadn't reached the level it did later as a public phenomenon, but you could see that it had its integrity to it, and yeah.
The foundation is definitely there. So for you guys that are listening, that will be out tomorrow. You can listen to my review of that. I'll have the links to where you can get it as well. I'm going to move us ahead a little bit to another intertwined event between you and I. Shortly before COVID, I can't remember the exact date now. I had it the other day. You played with the Carl Palmer Legacy, Emerson, Lake and Palmer Legacy Band. And it was an amazing show because it was like, yes, John Lodge and the Moody Blues, Asia, Carl Palmer. It was an amazing show. But what I had heard, the rumors were you were going to be at some of the shows and you weren't going to be at some of the shows. So it was a coin flip. I didn't know whether I was going to, but just at the prospect of getting to see you perform, after all these years and sitting there with the album cover, I thought, oh, I really hope it's a night you're going to be there. And let me tell you, Arthur, there's only one other time I've experienced this. When you walked out on stage, you have such an amazing, commanding presence just by being there. You weren't even singing yet. You just walked out. And you just have a really amazing presence. And the only other time I've experienced that was the two occasions where I've seen Alice Cooper, who has a very unique show where you really feel like he's actually controlling everybody like a puppet. I mean, his stage show is brilliant. You have that same commanding presence. I loved that. And then you sounded amazing, of course, singing the songs, and you did a great job on the ELP stuff too. How did it feel doing ELP songs with Carl?
Yeah, that was very strange. I mean, I remember when down in UFO we used to play, and the Nice played, which was Emerson's.
Yeah.
And I always loved his sounds. He would get the high electronic sounds that wouldn't go on the normal keyboard,
right?
Sound that people wanted. And so he was very daring in all of that stuff. So when Carl and Vince put together Atomic Rooster, and that spilled out where Carl, after about a year, I think, moved on to Keith Emerson. I felt that, oh, great, because he's another. I mean, Vincent was an overwhelming player, and Emerson was a presence as well as a gifted player, and so the idea of then me going out with Carl and doing a version of Fire. Oh, well, yeah, I understand that. And doing, and I'd received an offer to sing with on some of their tour dates, Atomic Rooster. Oh. So it was all floating in the air, that period of music and its styles. And I knew Carl had always been interested in the theatre. He was always on, with the creative world, a bright presence, cheeky, going out with Buddy Rich's daughter and absorbing a load of Buddy Rich's style. And he used to go and he'd come back in and say, "How was it?" He said, "Well, Buddy was in the kitchen with all the tubes for his, I think it was the asthma he had very bad.
Yeah.
And he had all the tubes in there to get the whatever it was that he was breathing down as far as he could get it." And so he'd be chatting to Carl and showing him bits, so that and it was lovely to be a part of that tradition. Carl, by the time I was doing the gig that you're talking about, still had the same amount of energy as he did way back then. He's a phenomenon, and he does the thing of carrying as little as he can. So his clothes are all the, sort of, what do you call it, extreme sport and walking, and where you can just wring them out, or you can put them under the tap. At the end of the day, wring them out. By the morning, they're dry again. They're washed, and you don't have to, take suitcases of clothes. He traveled in them. He was first out of the bus every time, straight down onto the sound.
He's very disciplined.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he's a black belt martial arts, isn't he?
Right.
He's got disciplines in every area.
Well, you're talking about a guy that used to drag his drums up into the Swiss Alps and just start playing. I mean, he didn't have a little drum set either. But what amazed me the first time I saw him when it was just him and the Legacy Band was, first, I mean, that's just an amazing thing that they put together, replacing Keith Emerson with a guitarist. It's just, who would think of that? But he would play 20th Century Schizoid Man, come out and talk. He goes and plays Tarkus. He comes out and talks. Like, he's not winded. He's just, like he just got up from having a coffee.
Most drummers at that age are fighting that they have to take something or zone themselves in order to stay up at the speed. Carl has to hold himself back, and that's the thing. You go like, oh crikey! He starts faster than you normally do, and then takes it, And I enjoyed the tour with Carl. He's a very fair person in terms of dealing with the musicians, and he always did love the theatre. So for him, me dressing up and was great.
Oh, it worked so well. I was so glad I got to see you perform. And a lot of European bands are not coming over to America right now. I don't know if this is still a repercussion of COVID and the costs and all that. I think Judas Priest is one of the only ones that has.
It is that cost. And, you had strange things of the original Yardbirds. And they slept in the van. It was all like being right back at the beginning of your career. Slept in the van, and once a week into a hotel and managed to get a shower.
Wow.
It's you either want to do it and hope that all over again it's going to take a bite somewhere, and or you just say we can't do it. And with Europe, a lot of the bands can't go there now. I think they've just begun to try and undo that. I mean, they've been trying. Their first attempt was, of course, tell us, go and get a job and retrain. Thank you.
I don't want to see you pumping gas or anything. Well, I hope it changes, because I can tell you, I mean, we have concerts, but man, I'd love to see, Purple come back over here. I'd love to see you. I know Carl's been over here a few times, but it's
Yes,
there's been very limited runs, and I know COVID changed everything, and I'm glad I got to see you
it
before
did,
that.
and I know that Yes had a tour
Mhm.
already booked, and
Yeah,
at the very close to the last day, they just said that the finance now, we just can't afford to do the
yeah,
tour,
it's a
and so
shame.
that got cancelled.
Yeah,
And it's also a question of age of the audience, and they're
true.
popping off left, right, and center as well.
But if
Uh,
you're a band that can fill an arena like a football stadium, like Metallica, or U2 is playing here at the Vegas Sphere, if you can do that, you're all right. But apart from that, it's kind of sketchy.
you're all right if you're American, because even they sometimes turned up and there would be, instead of 30,000 people, 3,000 people. How do you pay the expenses of that?
Yeah,
Well, I've still got my house, I still live here and everything. If you live the other side of the channel, everything costs so much more. You have to pay to get back. You
yeah.
have to, pay everybody's wages
Mhm.
that you promised them. And on top of that, you go back, you haven't got all the side sales and merch sales and record sales boosted by the tour. You
Right.
come back, you've got nothing. So
Mhm.
it's just as bad for, it's worse for an English person or, European band. And I think a lot of them did, most of them just got to
Yeah.
wait until things change.
Well, and you guys
And
get taxed to hell for everything you do on top of
yeah,
that. So
yes,
you've got some dates coming up in November. Are you pretty much staying in England? How far out are you going?
we do Germany,
Oh,
Italy.
okay.
We've got some interest currently in Peru.
Wow.
Uh, there's a band that they have a one of the original peoples of Peru. Uh, their champion uh, flute and any wind instrument. He's just phenomenal. And I got him to stand up. I was playing with a German band, the Hamburg Blues Band. I do some of that. It's sort of early R&B and
Mhm.
such music. And they have other people like Chris Farlow and people from that period that are
Mhm.
still singing out there. Um, and aha, yes, and I've remembered.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
I got him on. I got him on stage. He was his band. We were doing a festival in Germany,
Mhm.
and his band was playing. Uh, no, he was playing around that time, and he came to the festival, and so I met him, and I said, "Why don't you come on and play with this band?" And I said, we can do something like Sonny Boy Williamson's "Help Me." Da, da,
Mhm.
da, 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 da. And I said, you'll just. So he walked on stage, and he has that presence.
Ah,
So,
okay. Ah,
so everything went quiet. He hit 6 to 9 notes, and the audience went berserk.
wow.
And so he has that capacity, and that the band that are quite heavy metalish, um, that he plays with over there, uh, they got me to do a recording, and So they are proposing. They've been having some wars out there, and
Yeah,
so
a little bit. Yeah.
it's put the delay on it.
Mhm.
But there's an album track by uh, produced by Roy G, who did a lot with Bruce Dickinson,
Mhm.
but it's this band, and so they want me to go over there and do a small tour, not just Peru,
Okay.
around South America. Um, we've got inquiries from America. We've got inquiries from Australia, trying to piece together a tour. You
Mhm.
know, it's all very well for one festival or club to say, "Well, come on,"
Yeah.
you know, and you go, "Yeah, we could probably get there and do it, but we wouldn't. We'd have to pay the band, and we wouldn't make any money on it.
Yeah.
And we need to make a living, you know."
Yeah. You still have electricity bills just like everyone else, and you need to be able to fund projects and things too, like even if you record at home, your studio still costs money. If you have to go to a studio, that costs money. You got to pay the studio,
Yeah.
the engineer, all that. The costs don't
Yes.
go away. I think people have a misconception of once you've hit a certain peak of what do you want to say, success, that it's just an easy road from there. But every tour is a struggle. I mean, it doesn't end.
Yes. It doesn't, and I thank all those people who appear to go to places where you study the earnings of artists, and you've got like how much, all these questions. How much does Peter Townsend earn now, and how much is he worth? And they'll go like, oh, let's look. Oh well, it's obviously he's over his lifetime he's sold 22 billion records, not allowing for the fact who's going to take pie out of that before
Yeah.
the artist gets anywhere near it. So I disbelieve totally all of those statements, and it's a big,
Well,
smoke and mirrors.
I had a bit of a lesson in this when I read, I can't remember who the actor was, or maybe it was an actress for some movie that they got, 10 or $15 million for. And you think, you worked on this for 4 months, you got $15 million. This is insane. But when you find out what they pay back out of that, all the
Yes.
fees that they paid to buy the gowns, to go to all the different premieres, to go on all the talk show circuits and all that, they actually, I mean, they're okay. They're not hurting, but they get nowhere near what people perceive they get out of that.
No.
Even I just heard Prince talking about Michael Jackson, how little he actually made off a Thriller, because the record company got so much of it. And the perception of rock stars or rich people is not it's not that common.
No. And even the other, footballers, come whatever, they have uh, biting into that.
Yeah.
Many people, and of course, from different, shall we say, fraternities. So I mean, it's like uh, things that you wouldn't even think of. You might get a hit record by one person. When you look at the actual sharings out of, say, the publishing, lots of people had nothing to do with that, and who weren't even around at that time later pick up the share that the publisher wants to downgrade, and so you can't even rely on that as
Yeah.
a judgment of it all. Uh, but of course, you still do it, and people still make money to live. And
Well, you can't
uh,
not do it. I mean, if you're a creative, especially if you're a performer, you have to perform. If you're a creative, you have to create. It doesn't stop. I was at a restaurant not too long ago with a friend of mine who was telling me about this strange sound that her ice machine was making. And I said, "Wait, say that again." And she did it. And I came up with a rhythmic pattern out of it. And I said, I could put this in the, you can't not hear it. It's just,
No.
you know, I seriously could talk to you all day, but before we wrap
But,
up, you have recently, oh yeah.
can we talk about what's going on now?
Yeah, I was just going to head into that. You have recently gotten into the world of social media, which is a whole I can of whatever it is. But you've got a YouTube channel out now, and the YouTube channel is The Real Arthur Brown. And the links are going to be in the show notes for all you guys. Just click on them, it'll take you right there. You also have a website, The God of Hellfire. You have put a lot of effort into both of these channels. You're showing up on the socials like Facebook and Instagram. What is it like for you to be in the computer side of things where you come from the analog days?
I do, and I was one of the early artists to uh, put out records through um, the web and everything, and but I will say that the current presence, which I think is beautiful, and in itself kind of a work of art, um, is the work of Claire. And my contact with it is listening as she goes through TikTok every morning, and we have a good laugh and a good cry or whatever. There's some beautiful stuff on there,
Yeah.
and some hilarious stuff. And she has worked her way through over the last 7 years, becoming able to wield the whole of those available platforms, etc. I don't know how to do that. I know how she does it, so I've got an outside, but let me get Claire. And she is also the vision holder for the whole show that we're putting on. So she is a very, very talented and important person in our universe.
And she's very, very nice, very sweet. Uh, Let me ask you, the show that you're doing now, are you writing new material? Are you just kind of combining stuff that you've done over your career, or a combination of both?
What we have been doing, which was just starting a tour when COVID hit and lockdown and all of that, so it got delayed. In fact, we've just done the Royal Albert Hall with the shorter act,
What
and
a
it does
venue.
go. Oh, and I met the guy who designed all the sound and everything in
Oh,
there.
wow.
Oh yeah, I mean, what an undertaking and a satisfaction to have actually made a difference to the sound there, because
Yeah.
it was great for its purpose,
Mhm.
but electronic sound was far too, if you like, powerful and overwhelming
Right.
in a lot of it.
Well, it was
He,
designed for orchestra, right?
yes, it was, and that doesn't necessarily match an electric band, but he has managed to mitigate a lot of the difficulties that created, and so
Wow.
um, and we had a great sound. We had a great sound, and yeah. But the thing is that we are using for the act the theatrical and meaningful numbers from my career, that and we lots of them were involved in stories of their own, but this is a story by itself
Uh-huh.
of my and I'll leave Claire to tell you more about it, because she says it better than I could probably say it in 6 hours.
Let's just do the show.
Yeah, well, we also have done a new album, and that will feature in the stage act from next year, beginning next year. So if you want to see the current one, that's in our tour in November in basically in England. We have a couple outside of England, but let me get Claire.
Okay, sounds good.
Claire has taught herself, and she is in charge of it, and she is in charge of the vision of it. So I said, in our universe, she's very important.
He's putting the pressure on you, Claire.
Big time. I'm just sitting here thinking, uh-oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, Claire Waller.
So,
welcome, Claire.
How can I help you? Oh, dear.
Well, let's see. Are you on a laptop or a phone?
On a little iPad.
Can you maybe just turn it just a little bit, because I'm just getting the top of your head.
There we are.
There you go. Okay, that's perfect. Well, welcome. So Arthur said that it would take him 6 hours to explain it, which is, I think, longer than the actual show. So, although I wouldn't mind 6 hours of Arthur Brown, I think I can handle that. So
he's got a very nice voice, hasn't he?
He does. You know what's interesting too is I can hear his singing tones in his speaking voice, because he's got a deep speaking voice. But yes, I can also hear just like such a gentleness in his speaking voice, which is not always what you hear when he's singing. It's a nice contrast.
Yes,
he said that you're doing pretty much all of the internet stuff. Are you handling both the YouTube page and the website as well?
Yes. So I'm very lucky. We have a young friend, Marvin Stang, who we met in Germany. So I worked with a lot of Andys, actually, we've worked with. But originally, when we set up on the visual side of things, I worked with a guy to create the content, and he worked really hard, and together we, it was, this is what I'm seeing, Andy, and he had the technical know-how. He also worked on building the website with our vision. So I manage, well, together, we set out on this together. So it's been a case of homemade, create it, and then really sort of learn all the skills as you're going along. But really very much aided now, certainly with the shop, with the website, with visually a lot of the stuff via Marvin. I work with him. He's in Germany, so this is the wonder of the modern world.
Yes.
So, we tend to work really peculiar hours and work together and create that. But the social media side of things, Matt North started with Arthur and started on the website and the social media Facebook page. But we run all that now. So the Instagram, we do have TikTok, but I'm finding that one a little, it's just all of these things. I mean, it's about 6 hours a day on social media. And actually, Arthur genuinely answers the questions. So, yesterday there was a guy wrote in about, oh, this is the helm of my ship, which is a line from Come, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he writes back, so it's very much, it's been quite exciting in the last couple of months, because it started to get traction, because I think with coming out of COVID and going out and gigging again, it has a meaning, and you have content to bring, and people have been to the show, so they'll write in. But we've also started a subscribe newsletter. So that's becoming quite fun, because we always put a little picture of something at home on that, and then Arthur writes. So this newsletter that went out yesterday was the backstory of dance, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
it's kind of so beautifully written, I have to say.
Do you have it?
I did, yeah. If I hadn't already heard the album, I would have immediately wanted to hear that album. I mean, that was a very passionate description of music, and it's hard sometimes to write about music because music is so feeling. Even if it's lyrical, it's mostly about how it makes you feel. But you guys are doing a great job with the sites. I mean, you're always uploading new content to the YouTube channel. The website itself is absolutely beautiful. You've got a nice store there, but it's just a wonder world of Arthur's career, and it's just so well done. I refuse to get on TikTok. It is just the weirdest world to me. I don't understand it. I'll stick with Facebook and Instagram for now. And then I'm sure I'll eat.
And then there's Threads,
Yeah.
I don't know how that's building. I kind of just put the platform there and just left that because to me it's kind of, but then there's some really interesting things. I think if you're doing this genuinely because it's your work and it's your life, then people pull up the most amazing stuff and you think, wow, where did that come from? And I've shown Arthur, you found something yesterday, didn't you? Where, it's just this huge sea of stuff. I mean, he's had a huge length of a career. So there's lots of things, but he does remember. That's what's beautiful about it. You say, oh, what's the story of that? And there's so many stories.
Yeah.
And what our mission was when we set out together, I've always said to Arthur, what is it you want? What is it you want from this? And he said, really, just to establish the fact that he wasn't a one-hit wonder. He spent his life creating. And what's really pleasing now is that his catalogue of music is coming out. So maybe he doesn't love all of it, or I don't love all of it, but there's gems within each of that. And then there's all this undiscovered stuff that is still there and has some really beautiful work on it. And I must say we are extremely lucky with who we have in our life now, because we found Andy for projections, who we just found randomly, who lives nearby to us, which is fortunate. Robin, Jim, and Sam have known Arthur a very long time, and Dan came to us via Jim and Sam. So it's kind of, if you hold something, I think, and you hold it very clearly, the right people manifest, don't they? It sounds very new agey, but
well, no, I think it's proven, and especially because you'll dismiss people that don't fit. If there's somebody who might be talented, but you just don't vibe with, then you just move along to, so you collect the right people. Yeah.
And also, I must mention the other Andy who set the content. He was great. And then, Marvin, as I say, the people that help us technically, and then my son's done photography for Arthur. We're really lucky and grateful, very much so.
And that Andy that did the content, he went to one of the shows with Carl.
Ah, okay. So you came to, where did you come then? Which one?
Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be at the Joint at the Hard Rock. The Hard Rock has sold. It's now Virgin Hotels, but I think they kept the theater. So when you guys come back, that'll still be there, and we've got a plethora of other places to play. But speaking of playing, so without giving too much away, because I think the way that Arthur performs, it needs an element of surprise. So without giving too much away, what can we expect on the tour that you're doing now?
Well, this has been a kind of love project that's really taken lots of twists and turns and hasn't come to its full fruition of the vision that we had at the start, because COVID came in, all sorts of, but actually we're seeing that now as a positive, because we've taken it out to various size spaces, to festivals, to tiny clubs. The tour last year in Germany, one of our favourite gigs was a tiny little club, and we arrived and thought, never going to manage this. But the crew there were amazing, and they transformed a tiny box and it became really magical, didn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're excited to go out, because we're doing small venues, larger venues, and a large one with Gong and Osric's Tentacles. But we we are challenging all the time. So I think what I would like to say about this is what we're hoping for in the tour is for Arthur to bring his voice and a dimension of performance that is slightly different, because he's going to be engaging differently. I'll just put it like that.
That's intriguing.
So he's up for the challenge, and we're pushing something which we've never done before. So we'll see whether it works. But I think Arthur's stage persona and his performance will pull it off.
Well, I think that's the thing. You have to, you can't just go out and do the same thing,
No.
even just for yourself as an artist. You have to do new things. You want to challenge you. It's got to stay fun. I try and find something different to do with every album. You know, whatever that thing is, it's got to be something different, you know, something that pushes me a little bit. Otherwise it just gets, it's not that it's not fun, but it does get a bit stale, and it can become very formulated after a while.
And it's not creative. I think the thing with this is, you know, we don't have big budgets, but sometimes that's good creatively, because you know, for instance, the costume, the hats and the helmets and things like that, they're very much handmade. But actually they would be made like that anyway, but they'd probably have slightly more expensive materials and could be finished better.
And it is Claire Waller who makes them.
It's embarrassing, you know. But no, but that's the kind of joy of it.
Well, don't worry, he's been embarrassing you the whole time. You just weren't here.
But we just want to bring this. It was always supposed to be a multi-dimensional take on the human perspective, and the essence of Arthur was center and framed by moving imagery, and the costumes were there to catch the light. So they're quite simple in structure, but they're shiny lycra, which, you know, Arthur, is he the shadow? Is he the one on the stage? And it does at points blend. And we had foils, we've had difficulty in pulling that off. So we're really going for, okay, how do we create this level of, oh, I'm looking at this. No, I'm not. I'm looking at that. I'm seeing shadow. I'm seeing the person's morphing into the visuals. That's the whole point of the show.
Interesting.
And how can you use light and color along with the sound so that sonically it's challenging. And the band are incredible. They've, you know, and they really are very, the word that everyone keeps writing about is tight, and they are, because they know each other. Yeah. We've got it set almost in a triangle, so they can triangulate the sound and each other's, you know, glances. Mm-hmm. So it's just really, each time we will add something, and something about the whole notion of it is, what do you see? What do you see in a person? What do you see in a situation? Did you see it correctly? Did you see the shadow? Did you see the light? You know, it's that concept.
I'm intrigued. Since I will not be able to get to Europe, of course, the big question for those of us over here would be, are you planning on filming anything or getting some footage to, you know, kind of give us an idea of what we're missing out on?
Yes, we are. And there's several ways we've looked at doing that. We try to share as much as we can, but we are very picky about, obviously the band want the sound to be great when it goes out. Mm-hmm. And visually, you know, our visual team are picky on that and want that. So we do put out as much as we can, and we're very fortunate with photographers. But filming wise, it's a really important thing that what goes out actually represents what you're trying to do. So we do want to actually create a space where we can film so that we've actually got all the dimensions that we want. So we are intending to do that. And again, Marvin would be who we would choose to come in and do that, because he's only 21 and he's just got this incredible eye for seeing what you're trying to say. Mm-hmm. And he captures it so beautifully. So we know who we want to film it. and
it sounds like it would be a delicate balance too, because what you're saying about whether you're seeing the shadow, whether you're seeing the person, like that's not something that you can necessarily just set up a camera and capture at a show.
And that's interesting because we have done that. You know, we were in Italy last year, and Robin and Sam are both really good with camera, and they set, you know, cameras up. I think we had 5, but it doesn't capture the show. What you need is the person in there with the angles and actually honing in on the message. And that's where a handheld is needed. You know, you need someone moving with the show, with Arthur.
Right.
And particularly Dan in this. Dan is the other performance man in the show. He steps out, and he is very charismatic, and he comes forward and plays with Arthur, you know, and that sort of interplay is what people want to watch, isn't it? You know, you want to see. And it is really, Dan locks in with Arthur, and they, you know, they perform together. So yeah, we're really excited. We've got a whole period now where we're rehearsing just the visual. So
wow, nice. Well, I mean, it's when Arthur performs, it's not a concert. I mean, there's music playing, but it's a stage show. It's more like a theatrical performance with enhanced by music. Are there going to be new songs, or is it kind of going through his career?
What we did when we set this, it's a story. So it's the story of Arthur's story, if you like, of, you know, who am I? What is life? It's trying to express that with the real key points of his music. But moving to next year, I don't know, am I allowed to say that? What we're wanting to do, the new album that has just been completed, is a kind of sequel to this show. So what we're wanting to do is to create a show of 2 halves where the new album comes in. So the show that we have at the moment sets the ground, and then it's almost like the final chapter, if you like, of that thing that he wants to express, without going into it too much.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but I'm very excited. I'm excited that there's a new album. Is there, can you give a tentative release date at this point, or is it too early?
No, we literally have just we've handed it over. So we're waiting.
Oh, okay. So it's being mixed now?
Feedback.
Oh, okay. Well, I've never heard a song I haven't thoroughly enjoyed. I'll just say that. So my I don't want to say my expectations are high, because that's a different pressure thing, but I will say I'm very hopeful that I will thoroughly enjoy it.
This is it's really the album Arthur wanted to make, and it's very experimental, and it's very beautiful. The writing is gorgeous.
For someone to say that an Arthur Brown album is experimental with that tone is really interesting, because I would say they're all experimental, and this sounds like you're pushing some boundaries even for an Arthur Brown album.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm really curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
See what you've done to me, Claire? Well, I cannot.
Think of your painting behind. It's that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I cannot thank you guys enough for taking so much time. I know I've gone well beyond what we had scheduled, but thank you guys so much. It has been such a pleasure. I really hope that in some ways you guys get back over here to do some shows. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would love to see you, and thank you guys so much.
We really want to get there. We really are. We tried. We almost had it last year, but it's the visa situation. You know, it's kind of. We love Lucky Doley. Do you ever watch Lucky Doley with the?
Not heard of it. No.
Oh, he's a keyboard player, Australian, and he's just. I want him to play with Arthur. It would be so magical. But he's actually. It's interesting. He's taken a kind of crowdfunding approach to get to the USA.
Oh, wow.
Because you know, musicians traveling nowadays, crazy money to be able to take your band who have invested all their time in creating something. So, you know, we are pushing for that, and we have to get there. There's such a big, group of really great fan supporters in the USA, and on all fronts of, the website, sales, and Arthur has history there. It would be great to get back.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much. It has been such a pleasure. I could talk to you guys all day. Really good.
Likewise. Very lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Well, we will keep an eye on that. So for you guys that are listening, check the show notes. Everything's on there. The YouTube page, the website. Go sign up for the mailing list. It's a lot of fun. Every time I get a new email, I just smile because I know it's gonna be something I'm gonna enjoy. And every one of them is just either made me laugh or just smile or just made me think. And I like things that make me think. I think we need more of that in this world. So keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully we'll see you over here before too much longer.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Cheers, guys.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.